Okay, let's get him on the line here. Alejandro, are you with us?
I am with you.
Wow, you know,
How are you?
I don't know about you, but the moon has been everywhere this week, Alejandro. I can't turn on the television now without seeing something on the news about it, and Buzz Aldrin is everywhere, flapping his gums. I have no idea what's going on, but he is saying something stranger and weirder. So I'm going to give you the studio floor, but, man, I will tell you there are a lot of people charged up about the show tonight.
Yeah, you know, I just saw the moon last night, believe it or not. It's pretty cool. But, yeah,
really?
The moon, exciting stuff. Yeah, I did. It was beautiful. Yeah, let's get into Roger Marsh. You know, this is the guy to keep you up to date at Examiner.com. He is pretty much our MUFON Director of Communications. We've titled him because he's been getting out. Essentially what he does is goes to the CMS, the same thing that you can go look at on MUFON.com. You can see all of the MUFON reports in real time, and he takes those and makes a little story about them and then follows up with the investigators to get you the latest on what's going on. And there's a lot going on. He wrote a lot about triangles in the last week. There are 4 or 5 states where they've seen triangular-shaped UFOs, and they're reporting these things, including one that was hovering low over a field in Indiana where 5 helicopters gave chase to it. So that's a brand new story that just came out from him. So the return of the triangles. You may remember back in Belgium in the 90s, they had a big flap with a lot of triangular craft, and their Air Force actually investigated that. And so you can go out actually to the MUFON site and possibly even a UFO TV and find a video of General DeBauer who talks about his investigation and famous picture that came from that. So very, very mysterious. Also, a report of a dozen silent UFOs that were crossing over the Ohio skies is a story that he wrote about a few days ago. And then Washington MUFON chief investigator has launched a new UFO study website, which is pretty cool too. And then right here near my hometown in Colorado, in Lakewood, Colorado, someone reported a bright UFO hovering just over the rooftops. Luckily, I'm next door in Littleton, Colorado, so it couldn't have been my place, or else I'd be a little worried. Luckily, I didn't have any missing time or anything like that either. But, of course, also making big news, just like you talked about, Buzz Aldrin. Yes. You know, this guy's been on the moon, and he waffles back and forth about whether he's seen UFOs or not. It made big news about a year or so ago when he was on a BBC documentary, and he said, oh, yeah, we saw a UFO, but we were smart enough not to call it a UFO so people wouldn't get all excited about it, you know, and everybody's like, wow. Then he goes on Larry King, and he says, oh, I think it was, tries to give this long, convoluted answer about how rockets are made, and then to finally get to the point that he thinks it was this panel off of a rocket that was floating around out there. And now he's talking about this giant monolith on one of the moons of Mars that he thinks, some people are arguing, well, a monolith can be naturally made, which is true. But if you watch this YouTube video,
that's not the way you said it. Yeah.
Exactly. You know, he's like, if people knew about this, you know, who made that? How did that get there? He's alluding to it being, you know, more than just a natural phenomenon.
Alejandro, he sounds like Hoagland talking about this thing. Are you kidding me? I mean, talk about dangling of the carrot. Am I right?
Yeah. Yeah, you're exactly right. So, and his argument, you know, the main argument he was making on this news program is why we should go to our moon and create a base there, because that's a much easier place to launch to get to Mars and check out this moon on Mars that has this monolith. So that was what he was trying to do. So just like you said, very strange, you know, kind of comment coming from him.
Incredibly strange.
And then, you know, another story, not as revealing, but certainly worth mentioning, is that there was a gentleman who called into a radio program when Obama's press secretary was being interviewed, and he asked about UFOs, and he did a great job. He said, I know lots of people think this subject is silly, but I hope you take this serious, because a lot of people, including credentialed military people, have talked about UFOs, and so has Edgar Mitchell. And I was wondering if you could talk about, with the transparency in government that you and the president talked about, are you going to release info on UFOs? And he did. Secretary Gibbs did handle it well. He just essentially said, well, we haven't talked about it, but we do believe in transparency, so, possibly that'll come along. So he didn't really say much, but he did treat the caller very nice, which was good, that he didn't make fun of things or laugh at him or anything. So both of these videos, you can also see all of this. You can see on the UFO Newswire link on the front page of MUFON.com, or if you go to Yahoo Groups, you can look up MUFON HQ and you'll be able to find all this, or just search MUFON at Yahoo Groups and you'll be able to find these stories. So those are the big stories going on.
Fantastic.
In UFOs. Oh, and you know what? I just got an update today. You were wondering about the conference in Spain.
Yes, indeed.
Well, here's some hot news, some gossipy type of stuff. But
I wish we had a little plug for that. Hot news like Paul Schaefer. Hot news, hot news.
Well, I love the news music you got going already. It's a lot of fun.
Thank you.
It's rocking.
Well, there you go. There's your hot news intro.
Yeah, I love it. But I guess some of the news, there are two pieces of big news. Some star witness, and I know you can read about this at Project Camelot because they were there, the people who run that, projectcamelot.org.
Yeah, sure.
There was a guy who talked about being on Mars. They talked about Buzz Aldrin talking about Mars, and he says, I worked for Livermore Labs, and I helped create craft that went to Mars, and I've been on Mars. So that was hot news. So we'll have to see. I didn't see really them substantiating his credentials in any way, but hopefully we can get that done in the future if this is a real deal. Also, I guess a dozen or so people tried to rush the stage during Dr. Greer's talk because 3 of the Spanish researchers said they had come up with some zero-point energy type of device, and that Dr. Greer, they say that Stephen Greer threatened their lives. So they rushed the stage because they wanted to have some time to air their grievances against Dr. Greer, and luckily the people there running it said, let's take this offline and talk about it later. But yeah, some big news there in Spain.
Well, that sounds first of all, great news, Alejandro. But
yeah,
I mean, let me ask you this first: is this the first time Spain has done an exopolitics-oriented conference?
I don't believe so. I mean, I work with Paula Harris a lot, and I know she's talked about going to Spain, I think, every year. So I think they've done it for a while. She said they had 1,000+ people at this conference.
You know what? I looked at it because I saw Bassett was going, and I'm a fan of his, so I like to. I was trying to see if maybe I could fit in his luggage or something, but I didn't even call him. But I knew Greer was going to be there, and it just looked like it was a fantastic place too, where they were having it. And wow, that's really cool information. I don't understand why Greer. It sounds incredibly fishy. The story. There's got to be multiple sides. You know what I'm saying? I mean, here's a guy who's out there trying to find for your energy devices, and then these guys are saying, that doesn't make any sense. I mean, it's totally counter. So, what about?
Yeah,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, I've met Greer quite a bit, had some conversations with him and stuff, and just saw him recently, and he can be a bit of hot-headed, he can get his blood boiling, but he's a professional, he's an emergency medic in the ER room, he's a professional, so maybe these guys exchange some words or something, but wow.
Well,
just
he's very, I've said it 100 times. I get in trouble sometimes for saying it. I don't know why. By all means, I'm definitely not one of the more provocative type radio host in ufology, but I don't like to butt heads. Stephen Greer is arrogant. He's very arrogant, and he definitely has a know-it-all approach to what he knows and what he speaks about. But you know what? If I had to list one of the top, I don't know, 5 guys in ufology that I'd like to sit down and have dinner with, man, he's on the list, you know, and he's done so much for the subject. I don't know how you can have an issue as far as I'm concerned. I know some people have issues with some of the stuff he does out with his CE5 protocol stuff, but the actual stuff that he's put together for the National Press Club events have been fantastic. Like you said, utterly professional, the top cusp, the top line of quality in ufology. And there's so much garbage, you know, that people put together sometimes, or I don't want to say garbage, half-ass, you know. Greer's up there, man. Don't you agree?
Well, you know, his disclosure project and what he did with that is literally what got me revved up and running in that stuff. I mean, when I saw that, it just, something clicked in my brain, and all of a sudden I had this compulsion to devote, you know, a lot of my life to this stuff, to kind of follow his lead there. So, yeah, you know, some of this stuff is controversial. In this last talk, he talked about being responsible for the Phoenix Light. Some of his stuff's out there, but you can't discount, like you said, some of those amazing things he's done.
So let's put that aside. Tonight is about the moon. Tonight is about this energy that everyone is feeling about the moon, and a lot of people are very angry and upset when I talk to them about this. Of course, you know, you mentioned that we might not have gone to the moon and that we hoaxed it, and what the most recent I got was this Mythbusters episode that everyone wanted me to watch real badly. So I finally sat down and watched it. And then there were these photos that came out, and I'm going to talk to Jarrah about this, these new LRO, I believe it was, reconnaissance photos from NASA. And apparently, you know, the Mythbuster episode, these guys created some lunar, they took like a big tabletop and decided to build their own little lunar surface and take a model of the lander and a little tiny action figure as Neil Armstrong, and they figured they could kind of recreate everything that happens on the moon. And I don't know. People were fascinated by this episode. It really kind of made me chuckle because if that summed it up for you so quickly, I have some pretty... And then the photos I saw, I mean, maybe I'd see all of them, and I'll talk to Jarrah about it, but man, I show you photos from Hoagland and people that show things that look like robots walking around on the surface of the moon, but then they show me these things that look like nothing, and they're like, oh, yeah, there's the Apollo sites. And I'm like, where?
I've seen that in those pictures. And, you know, I'm convinced we went to the moon. I'm certainly also convinced that NASA doesn't share, and NASA's not honest with us. To me, there's no doubt of either of those things. And, you know, I know engineers in this field who worked on the Apollo project, and they get very upset because that's their life work. That's their crowning achievement. They got to work on the Apollo project. They got to work on the nuts and bolts of this thing and launch this rocket, launch these rockets, and get people to the moon. And so they're proud of that. And when people say, no, you didn't, you know, that's like you with this show. Let's say 30 years from now, you're retired, and you say, you know, I used to do a UFO show. Yeah, you keep saying that. I don't believe you. You didn't. You didn't do any UFO show. You don't know nothing about UFOs. So that's why they get so upset. I even heard some feedback saying, what are you doing? I heard that you're associated with this show talking about the moon, and you know, people they're hurt. They get really hurt by that. And I had to tell them, you know, it's not that the show believes that. They're just, you know, highlighting and letting people speak, you know, and not that I believe that, and I'm promoting that aspect. So I even had to take a little heat for that this week. But that's why they get so upset. And I've talked to these engineers, and these engineers you're talking about thousands of Apollo engineers. And I would like to know, you know, has this guy talked to those engineers? Does he think these thousands of engineers and technicians are lying about what they did? Some people say, well, they didn't know everything that happened. But these are the guys who built the antennas, built the communications devices, ran those communication devices, tracked this thing there and back,